Hey guys, welcome to Juicy Tea, where I read out the best stories on Reddit, so you don't have to. The funny, shocking, and satisfyingly juicy. Would I be the a-hole if I refused to give my fiancé money ever again? Our first post comes from the Am I the A-hole subreddit, posted by a throwaway account. My fiancé and I have 2 kids. We agreed that I'd stay home and care for them until they both go off to school. He'd pay all the bills and such since it'd be a lot cheaper for me to stay at home versus sending our disabled child into daycare. For Christmas, I received some money from my dad, which he told me to spend on myself and the kids. My fiancé found out about this money and asked to borrow it. I told him that I didn't really want to since we needed diapers and wipes and other stuff for our kids, and I planned on buying those with the money my dad gave me. My mum ended up buying them as a late gift. My fiancé decided to write out a contract that stated that he legally had to pay me back in 2 weeks. I added in that if he couldn't pay it by his own deadline, then he owed an additional $100. He agreed to that. He signed the contract and marked it with a thumbprint and everything. The first deadline he paid $5 of the $125 he owed me by then. The second deadline, 2 weeks later, he told me that he just can't pay it back and is saying that partners don't do this and that they're supposed to help each other out. I told him that it was his idea for the contract and that he agreed to both terms. It's even on video him signing, by the way. The thing is, I wouldn't be so pressed about being paid back if the day I lent him money, he didn't decide to buy $60 worth of weed instead of paying his car note like he said he would. He's saying I should be more than glad to help a partner who's struggling, which I would be if he wouldn't spend his bill money on weed and the lottery. So I told him either he can pay back the full amount of $225 that he agreed to pay me, or he'll get absolutely nothing from me ever again. I have 0 income. The money I get is gifted to me by my family, or on the rare occasion, from him. I've been trying to find a work-from-home job, but I haven't found one that I qualify for yet. And since he doesn't work a regular job, I can't just work on his off hours, as he doesn't have a set schedule. Some days he works mornings, some days he works nights, and he doesn't know until the day of or the day before. Am I the a-hole here? Love how he says, this isn't what partners do to each other, while he's taking money meant for diapers to spend on weed. What a selfish prick. There's some interesting points being brought up in the comments about how the fiancé is meant to be providing and covering bills, but clearly isn't, as she needs to spend gift money on diapers. Laidback Beach says, no, her father did not say spend it on the family. He specifically excluded the fiancé, which to me means the father knows what's up at home. Scary Butterscotch 474 says, Dad knows what's going on, and OP still gave the money to a fiancé. Read the room, OP! Also, him working to supposedly provide for the family is the reason she can't work. But he's not providing for the family. Sounds like she'd literally be better off as a single mother. Edit to add context. When he and I first got together, he was doing a lot better financially. He wasn't spending his money on weed nearly as much as he is now. He was actually providing it first. Even when we had our first kid 4 years ago, he was still pretty good. We planned on stopping at 1 kid until our eldest was much older, so I'd gotten on birth control not long after having our eldest. My birth control ended up failing, and I found out that I was pregnant too late to do anything about it. At the time, things were still doing a lot better than they are now, so I figured things would stay good after having our second. While I was pregnant with our youngest, our eldest became disabled. She suffered a terrible fall that drastically changed everything for us. She's been in and out of the hospital more times than I can even count. It was sudden and unexpected. She was already receiving Medicaid, so medical bills thankfully aren't an issue. But her disability has still taken its toll on everyone. When he asked to borrow the $125, I told him no at first, but he kept insisting that he'd lose his car if he didn't make the car payment. It wasn't until he answered a FaceTime call from his dealer, with me sitting right next to him, that I found out that he used $60 of the $125 to buy weed. In the comments, I saw someone say that I smoke too. I don't. I tried weed once when I was like 20, and I hated it. I told my fiancé that I was okay with him smoking, as long as it didn't interfere with necessities, even before having kids with him. He seemed to be on board with that for years and years, and then it's like a flip switched. I still don't mind him smoking, just as long as our family needs are met first. I also saw some people suggesting to do Uber Eats and stuff like that. I definitely would, but we're a one-car family, and he always has the car when he works. Otherwise, I'd be out there doing deliveries. I have applied for disability, but the process is still going on, so we haven't received any payment yet. I do try to do surveys to make a little extra money every chance I get, but I'm going to look into some of the other work from home suggestions some of you had and try to get one ASAP. I receive WIC and IP, so I buy most of the food. He buys anything extra and pays the rest of the bills, or rather, he's supposed to. He doesn't tell me much about his finances, so I don't know exactly how much money's coming in and how much the bills are. When I ask him, he gets pretty angry, so I just drop the subject. A lot of you people also suggested that I should leave him. I know that's probably for the better, but it's hard when you still love someone. He was a great partner for years before we had our first, and he was a great father for a while after having our first. I don't want to just throw that all away. I hope after seeing the comments, she seriously reevaluates the relationship because he is not that great partner anymore. He's now the partner that steals from his family to buy weed and gamble. If there's any hope, he needs to acknowledge that he has a problem and agree to her managing the finances going forward. Am I the a-hole for refusing to allow my mother-in-law into our home until she apologises for the comments she made about my past? Posted by a throwaway account. I, 27 female, made a lot of mistakes when I was younger, and at 16 I had a baby girl. Her father was a lot older and a very bad guy, and was sent away to prison before she'd even been born. We, of course, have no contact today. I'm ashamed of my past and do everything in my power to better myself and provide for my daughter. For example, I missed out on my GED when I was younger, so I studied to achieve it later in life, and I'm currently part-time at college while working. My daughter is 11, healthy and flourishing in school, and I couldn't be prouder of her. 6 years ago, I met my current husband, 27 male, and he's just a wonderful human being. He's been nothing but supportive of me, and is an amazing person to be around my daughter. So much so that after we got married 2 years ago, he formally adopted my daughter. The only problem is his mother. She's very conservative, being a born-again Christian, and the interactions we've had together have never been good. I've always been aware that she dislikes me as a result of my past and didn't want my husband to marry me or adopt my girl. But on both sides, we were able to be civil enough, to a degree that I imagine she just accepted it. My husband doesn't have the best relationship with her either, but tries his best, and I've always supported him through that. Even so, I dislike her, and I know she hates me. Recently though, she said something really awful. It was during a family meal. She came over with her husband, my husband's stepfather, and we ate alongside my daughter. My mother-in-law kept staring at my daughter to such an extent that she was visibly uncomfortable. I asked her politely why she kept looking at her like that, to which my mother-in-law coldly asked if she looked anything like her father and whether we could compare her face to his mugshot. I was floored. My husband was furious, and my daughter actually cried, which made me start bawling too. My mother-in-law smirked and just left with her husband. After that, my husband and I refused her access to our home. This was a month ago. A few family members have started admonishing us for keeping her away as long as we have. My reply is that she hasn't apologised, and so we don't want her back. But they're saying we're being cruel and not being understanding of her moral values. She's apparently said she's sorry about what happened, but crucially, she hasn't said that to me. Am I being a major a-hole, or am I within my rights here? Edit. I forgot to mention that my mother-in-law has since been bad-mouthing me to the rest of the family, even more than she did before. So, her moral values include making children cry? I just want to say, OP, that you sound like an amazing woman and mum. Despite everything life threw at you when you were just a kid too, you pulled through and built a good life for yourself and your daughter. That's amazing. Down in the comments, Happy Trifler says, "Not the a-hole. Don't allow her to have any contact with your child again." And when anyone says anything about it, say, "It's because you're appalled at your mother-in-law's lack of Christian values." Specifically say you don't want a fake Christian around your daughter. And until your mother-in-law sincerely apologizes and proves that she can actually act like a Christian, then she can't have any contact. Throw that woman's fake religious moral values right back in her face. Entitled Ken felt entitled to my engagement ring. Posted by RedneckAngel83. So this happened a few months ago. I was doing my normal monthly grocery shopping at Walmart. I was in the meat section, getting what my family needs and will use for the month. I'm terminally ill, so my weight fluctuates quite a bit. My fingers swell and shrink depending on what kind of day I'm having. At this moment, my hands were as small as they ever get. While putting a roast into my cart, my ring slips off and clangs its way through the bottom of the cart and onto the floor, where it bounced a couple of feet. Cue Entitled Ken. This man looks directly in my eyes, picks it up and puts it in his pocket. Well, I was shell-shocked and frozen. I mumbled a quiet thanks and, "Can I have my ring back?" He made no move to give my ring back until an employee made it known that she'd seen the whole fiasco happen and would be calling the cops if he didn't hand it over. He mumbled something akin to, "I found it on the ground, it's mine," but he immediately handed it back, despite his protest. Like, what in legitimate hell made him decide that he could just take my ring? Moonlighting2552 says, "He took finders keepers to a whole new level. It's one thing to find a ring that someone's dropped and didn't realise, as it's extremely unlikely that that person will remember when and where it went missing. It's another to just steal a ring in front of the person who just dropped it." Burnt Bread Dog says, "This happened to me in high school. I took off my rings to wash my hands. I turned to leave without them because I'm absent-minded and forgot. But before I even opened the door, I remembered and turned around, just to see a girl slipping them into her pocket. I asked for my rings back and she goes, 'What rings?' I reached into her pocket and just took them. She goes, 'Whoa, whoa, whoa, those are mine!' I just turned around and said, 'No, they're not,' and left. It was truly bizarre. But I also expect high school girls to be a little bit more entitled than a grown-ass man, like in this." Remember, I post new content every day, so subscribe for more juicy tea.